It's a tough day for Ontario and for Canada, just as much as it's a tough day for the United States. Because, well, there's no question President Trump's tariffs on Canada will hurt us. They will also hurt Americans. U.S. markets are on the decline. In fact, the S&P 500 has already wiped out over $3 trillion in value. Factory floors and assembly lines across the American Rust Belt will start to close. American workers will be out of a job. American families will be poorer. This is not the outcome anyone wanted. Over the past few months, we've taken a strong, united Team Canada approach. The federal government, provinces and territories, municipalities, unions, business leaders who have all made the case. We're so much stronger together. I've spoken to governors, senators, congressmen and women from every region, both Democrats and Republicans. They know, they tell me, these tariffs are a massive mistake. We could have stayed focused. We could have poured our effort into making Canada, the U.S., the two richest, most successful, safest, most secure two countries on the planet. Unfortunately, one man, President Trump, has chosen chaos instead. Now, we have no choice. We have to respond. Earlier this morning, Prime Minister Trudeau and his team announced retaliatory tariffs. They have my full support for a strong and forceful response. Tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. As they do, the federal government needs to ensure it's getting revenues from its tariffs to impacted workers and businesses as soon as possible. To support the federal government's efforts, Ontario will also launch its first round of retaliation. Starting today, LCBO, the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, will begin removing U.S. products from its store shelves. And as the exclusive wholesaler, American brands will no longer be available in LCBO catalog, meaning other retailers, bars, and restaurants in the province will no longer be able to restock U.S. products. This is an enormous hit to the American producers. Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider, seltzers, and spirits, including more than 3,600 products from 35 states. As of today, every single one of these products is off the shelves. Also, starting today, all U.S.-based companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement. Every year, the province and its agencies spend about $30 billion on procurement, alongside our more than $200 billion plan to build infrastructure. U.S.-based businesses will now lose out on tens of billions of dollars in revenues. They only have President Trump to blame. I'm also urging all 444 municipalities to do the same, and I'm thrilled to see some are already stepping up. For example, Mayor Patrick Brown in the city of Brampton and many other cities. As part of this government-wide procurement ban, we're going one step further. We're ripping up Ontario's contract with Starlink. It's done, it's gone. We won't award contracts to people who enable and encourage economic attacks on our province and our country. Alongside federal tariffs and the measures my fellow premiers are bringing forward, this Team Canada's opening response. We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on. Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration follows through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well. I'm encouraging my fellow premiers to follow suit. Friends, I know you're worried. You're concerned about the future. I want you to know I will fight like I've never fought before. I will do whatever it takes to protect you, your families, and your communities. We are watching the real-world impacts of these tariffs, and we will be there for you. We will spare no expense to protect Ontario workers. We'll retrain impacted workers for new jobs. We'll retool companies for new customers and new markets. We'll reshore supply chains to bring good jobs back home. And we'll rebuild roads, highways, bridges to keep people working. Led by my friend Premier Tim Houston, we're breaking down costly internal trade barriers. And we need to cut the red tape to end the delays that are blocking projects with enormous economic potential like the Ring of Fire. Canada and Ontario did not start this fight. We want to work with our American friends and allies, not against them. We said we'd never start a trade and tariff war with the U.S., but you better believe we're ready to win one. Friends, I've always been straight up with you. The coming days and weeks will be hard. Businesses and families will feel the pain of this needless fight. But together, we're going to stand up for Canada. We're going to get through this more united than ever before. Together, we're going to protect the true north strong and free. Thank you, and may God bless the people of Ontario.
We will now take questions from the media. Please come to the mic and state your name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
This morning, the Prime Minister said he now believes that what Trump wants is the total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that will make it easier to annex us. Do you agree that this is what Trump wants?
Yes, I agree with the Prime Minister. That's what President Trump wants, to dismantle, close down plants, take food off our table. But I can tell the Canadian population and the Ontario population will fight like we've never fought before. The difference is the federal government, we have the lowest debt in the all G7. And Americans, the U.S., have one of the highest debts. And talking to the American people and all the elected officials, no one is agreeing. When Warren Buffett comes out and says this is basically, he's saying it's a disaster, along with every other CEO down in the U.S., this will affect Americans. It will hurt Canadians, but it's going to hurt Americans. The assembly lines in the auto sector will shut down within 10 days, I predict. Hopefully they won't, but I'm predicting they'll shut down because of the trade that we do back and forth, the supply chain, that parts, as you've heard many times, goes back and forth up to 8 times, each time hitting a 25% tariff on both sides of the border. I am almost positive the assembly plants will shut down on both sides of the border.
Premier Mark McAllister from City News.
Hi, Mark.
You've recognized the fact that this is going to hurt on this side of the border as
Yes.
well. The Prime Minister said that his priority first is to try and keep these tariffs from lasting any longer than they need to, not necessarily managing what can be done to help Canadians and deal with their loss. I'm just wondering what you can do right away to help people in terms of resources, perhaps cash.
I'll be sitting down with Prime Minister Trudeau this afternoon, along with the premiers. We do have a plan, so no different than the pandemic, very similar. We'll be supporting the people, we'll be supporting companies, and we're making sure that we diversify our trade, bring in more opportunities from around the world. Folks, we have 51 countries that we have tariff-free agreements with. We need to unite with them. We've brought over $70 billion of business from around the world to Ontario, but we need to continue. What we have to blame, we need to look in the mirror. Over the last decades, We've taken the U.S. for granted as their number one trading partner. We need to speed up approvals on critical minerals that the world wants, the Americans need, and we have. We can no longer take 10 years to get shovels in the ground. This is what we need to do on many areas. We need to move quickly. We need to move quickly on infrastructure projects across Ontario. The federal government, they need to move quickly on making sure that when they go out for procurement, they're Canadian companies. They have to speed up the procurement. One example is the 400 light armored vehicles in London with General Dynamics. We can't hold on to these purchasing agreements. We need to move them forward to give people certainty. We need to start building roads and highways and bridges. We need to start building rail right across the country. We need to build a pipeline east, west, and north. We should have done this decades ago. Again, we need to move quickly on this because this isn't the end of Donald Trump. We're going to be dealing with Donald Trump for another 4 years of unpredictability, threats to all or their neighbors, but right around the world. So we have to make sure we diversify and make sure that the provinces, municipalities, and the federal government buy Ontario, and secondly, buy Canadian if we can't make it here in Ontario. And again, I mentioned it the other day to the retailers. Across Canada, we buy $800 billion worth of retail products, no matter if it's grocery or tools or other things. We have to make sure we onshore these products. And if the big 5 retailers or 6 retailers in the groceries, you can't find it anywhere else, we will make it here in Ontario or other places around the country. We need on the shelf talkers. I love, by the way, the apps that are coming out. But little Ms. Jones that are walking down the aisle, she's not using that app to scan every single bag and every single product. They need to put it very clearly on their shelves. And I'm asking for their support. And if they don't do it, I will legislate it. You put your price, you put the Canadian flag beside the price. And the other ones, I need every product from the U.S. to have the price in an American flag. You don't have to worry about any other products if they're coming from around the world. We aren't battling against the rest of the world. The battle is against President Trump. And I always emphasize, folks, I talk to endless Americans. I talk to endless elected officials. It is not them. Don't blame the American people. It's Donald Trump to be blamed for this.